Today I'm gonna talk about Nikon Z6 II and see what would happen if I use Nikon Z6 II instead of my own cameras. Will it make things better? Will it make things easier? Will we have the same quality that we have achieved on this channel? Actually, the testing has already begun. Right now, I'm shooting with Nikon Z6 II. And it's connected to my external recorder Atomos Ninja 5, and we're recording in 10-bit analog. The reason why this is connected to this external recorder, because internally Nikon Z6 II cannot record in 10-bit or analog or HLG or longer than 29 minutes. By the way, the audio is being recorded by SONY. It is connected to my Sennheiser microphone up here. They both have 50mm lenses on them. Nikon has 50mm f1.8 and Sony have 50mm f1.2. They both have Moment's Cinebloom filter on them, 10% Cinebloom. And it's not really fair right now to compare to A1 because A1 is a $6,500 camera and Z6 II is $1,999. But this is the situation. This would be the talking head shot that I get on my set. Now let's talk a little more and add some top-down shots. I want to talk about my history with Nikon. It has a very special place in my heart. I used to own a couple of Nikon cameras and I took tons of photos, even videos with them. Back then shooting videos with those cameras were not easy, but I had a great time doing it. When I first moved to Los Angeles, I used to take my Nikon everywhere. I did headshots, I did album covers, all of this. Actually, looking back at it now, cannot believe it. These are good. These are my friends and my teachers and from school. Yeah. These are all shot on Nikon cameras. There's my name. I also did a documentary in my school which I thought it was gonna turn out great, but it was a disaster. I did 1 week in Musicians Institute, possibly the worst vlog ever. That's why it's never released and it's probably not gonna get released at all. I worked with a vintage guitar salesman. I used to take photos of his inventory for his website. I also worked with fitness teachers, which was a lot of fun. And besides that, I used to have my Nikon camera with me all the time. And I just loved taking photos of everything. Take a look at this. This is a planetoid I did years and years ago. Do you know how difficult it is to make a planetoid photo before 360 cameras? Do you know how many steps it requires? A lot. But now back to this camera. Nikon released this in September 2020 and so it's been out for a while. They released a firmware update and now it can record in 4K 50 and 60 frames per second, which it wasn't able when it first came out. Now let's get to unboxing and continue with our review. And here it is, the $2,600 Nikon Z6 II with 24 to 70mm f4 lens comes in this nicely designed box. Inside the box we're greeted with user manuals, underneath that Nikon Z6 II itself. At first glance this camera looks great and the grip fits nicely into the hand. At the front we see the Z mount and the back illuminated full frame 24.5 megapixel CMOS sensor behind the cap. On the right side we have the memory card door where we can put one UHS-2 SD and one CF Express Type B card in. On the left side we have the mic and headphone ports behind the door. And behind the other door, USB-C, HDMI and the remote control ports. Now it is time for the sizzle test. Oh, that's some full frame sizzling right there, I tell you. We also get a pouch, of course 24 to 70 f4 lens, lens hood, USB-A to USB-C cable, battery charger, cable holders, Nikon ENAL15C battery, strap, And that's pretty much it. I'm pretty sure most people would prefer if LCD screen flipped out, but as I mentioned before, in my case, especially when my camera is plugged to HDMI, external power, etc., and it is on a slider or on the overhead position, I much prefer the tilting screen. I say apart from one focus hunting during the Talking Head, Z6 II performed really good for this scenario. Now let's see what happens if we like to get some beauty shots with it.
This next segment is brought to you by sneakers and Jacques Slade because, well, I really like sneakers. And this is the Air Jordan 1 High Shadow 2.0. It's an update of the original Air Jordan sneaker released way back in 1985. This colorway, wait a minute, look how smooth this footage looks. Is he shooting this while riding on the wings of an angel? Sorry, let me get back to the shoes. They were originally designed by, or for Michael Jordan by Peter Moore, and I bet Peter never thought he'd get this sort of buttery soft B-roll and speed ramping on herringbone traction. I don't know if I should cry or just lick the screen. My good, sorry, lost my focus again. What was I saying? This is what a classic sneaker looks like. From the shape to the style to the colors that come together in just the right way, the Air Jordan 1 High Retro is a masterpiece, and this footage just made me fall in love all over again. I'm Jacques Slade and not iPhonedo, but let's be honest, I wish I was iPhonedo.
Right now I'm shooting with an Atomos and we're shooting in N-Log. Let me show it to you. Of course in 10-bit, because I also want to see myself while filming here, especially with the 50mm lens. And on top of it we have rings to adjust the size, and we have the filter, ND filter, variable ND filter. Yeah, so this is the setup. Having a little problem with the focus right now. It finds me, but it never did such thing. See, right now it's focusing to my eyes, which is what we have in the settings. Let's go over here and look. Autofocus full time with face detection, eye detection. Everything must be fine. This is set to auto. When I first entered the frame, I'm kind of out of the focus, but this wasn't a problem. Now I'm back in focus. This is good. This is faster. Everything is good. Let's go back. Yeah, that's pretty good. Maybe it warmed up. Maybe it was a little cold for this guy out here right now. I don't know. So now I'm gonna put this lens on and put this mic on, and we're gonna go and ride around and see what we can get. But first, I think we need to get a photo of this. Okay, now I have the camera ready with an ND filter on it. I just put the microphone on it because I don't want to open my bag anymore. And we're gonna go there and we're gonna get a long exposure photo. All right, now I have it set it up right here. I think this is gonna be a nice shot. We're gonna shoot for 25 seconds at f14 at ISO 100. I feel like the waves are gonna be really puffy, really cloudy. Let's see what happens. I also set a timer. Just finished shooting. I haven't looked at the photo. I wanted to look at it with you. Let's tap on this. Oh, look at that. That is nice. For the second long exposure, I think we can do something like this. Right? I feel like that's gonna be nice. Here we go. 1, 2, 3. And now it's gonna take a photo for 30 seconds. All right, just finished taking the photo. Let's go ahead and see. Oh yeah, that looks good. Oof. We have some dust in the sensor that I need to clean. But other than that, look at that. That looks really good. I'm worried about this one. We may need to run. Uh-oh. Come on. Oh, we got it. Let's see. Good, but can be better. I don't know. I want to get closer. Let's try it. A beautiful day in Venice Beach. Let's get one more photo. Uh-oh, this is it. This is it. Whoa! Come on, little guy, come on. All right, we got it. Yeah, that's the best photo. We can go. Thank you for your service. Okay, testing. Right now I have the electronic vibration reduction turned on. Also, the optical image stabilization is turned on as well. And I'm slowly walking around. I'm holding the camera right underneath the lens. And this is what it looks like in the arm's length in 24mm f4. There's no analog, there's no 10-bit, this is 8-bit, and of course we are shooting in the lowest ISO. I think what a lot of companies are not realizing is Catalyst Browse. If you don't know what Catalyst Browse is, it's an application from Sony, and what it does is basically while you're shooting a video, your gyro data gets recorded into that video, and you can bring that footage into this application on your computer, and you can apply stabilization using that gyro data. And what that does is, if there's nothing the camera can see, the application can see to apply the stabilization, it still can use the gyro data to achieve the stabilization you want, which is a fantastic solution because the stabilization we get applied just by looking at the footage is not the best always. So we definitely need something like that for every camera, any camera that is out there. We need a Catalyst Browse app because sometimes you may want 10% crop and that much stabilization, and sometimes you may want 30% crop and that kind of stabilization, which is probably going to look like you are on a gimbal, because you can shoot in 4K, apply 30% crop with the gimbal-like stabilization and use it in 1080p, or you can shoot in 4K and apply 9%, 10% crop and have good enough stabilization just the way you want. It's all about having the option, and it's really useful. I use it a lot. Of course, now we have to talk about crop, because when it comes to crop and electronic image stabilization, there are some things that you probably need to know. First of all, in 24 frames per second, which is this one, or 30 frames per second, in 4K there's no crop. In 4K 50 and 60 there's 36% crop. There's something in front of me, which is pretty significant, but it basically means it is switching from full frame to APS-C. And also remember that we didn't have 50 frames per second or 60 frames per second in this camera in the beginning. They added that afterwards with a firmware update, but also in 50 and 60 frames per second, you cannot turn on electronic image stabilization, and you cannot change the movie quality. Yes, there's a movie quality setting in this camera where you can set it to normal or high. The electronic image stabilization adds 9% crop. One thing that is it can be a deal breaker is that this camera still has 30-minute video recording limit. So after 29 minutes and 59 seconds, it stops recording, which is I don't even know what to say about it. It shouldn't be there. They should remove this with another firmware update, but it is there. Also, when you hit record, when it starts recording or when it stops recording, there's no notification, there's no sound going bidibit, dibidip, anything. And so you don't know if you're recording or not. You have to be careful about that. For example, I don't know if I'm really recording right now. Let's see. Oh yeah, I am. When it comes to slow motion, it can do 1080p 120 frames per second, and that's why we're here by the skate park, as it's tradition. Try to capture some skateboarding footage in 1080p 120 frames per second. Until now, the audio level of the camera was set to auto. Now I just set it to 10, and we're gonna see if that makes a difference. Meanwhile, I like to talk about the buttons and the dials we have on this camera, which are very practical and very useful. For example, if you want to change the autofocus, you can just hold down the autofocus button, and the front dial changes different stuff, the back dial changes different stuff, which is really good. It makes things a lot easier. I have one battery with me. Nikon didn't send a second battery, which is good because the battery life of this camera is not bad at all. So far as I can see, the autofocus is doing a really good job and it's keeping me in focus, but of course we're gonna be judge of that when we get home and see it on the big screen. Meanwhile, while I was changing lenses here in Venice Beach, we got some dust in the lens and I need to take care of that once we get home, but right now we may have some dust on the sensor, sadly, waiting for me to clean it up. By the way, the touchscreen is really nice. You can change anything you see on the screen. You can tap on a lot of stuff. If you see ISO, you can just tap on it and you can change it to whatever you want. That's really good. Also, the battery life on this device is pretty good. I was able to record 4K 60 frames per second longer than 2 hours with no overheating indoors. And the only reason it stopped recording because we ran out of battery. I didn't even see the overheat sign, so that's pretty good. All right, let's check out my notes to see if there's something else I like to talk about. Yes, there's lag on the screen, on the back screen, and when you connect it to HDMI. Nikon is connected down here and Sony is connected up there, and there's a delay on Nikon. And in the viewfinder, actually the viewfinder is not that good. It's very similar to A7C, Sony's A7C. When it comes to viewfinder, it is there. Actually, this is better than A7C, but it still has a weird lag and what it feels like there's a rolling shutter. Okay, so now I set the ISO to auto. So what we're gonna do is we're gonna go in here and get a little low light test, and then we're gonna get up from the other end and see how it's gonna adjust. All right. Now we're in here. We probably have a terrible backlight. I don't know what my face's situation is. Is it lit? Can you see my face? Also, can you hear me? Because they're working here. And we're coming to the end of it. Okay, they stopped. We're coming to the end of the little tunnel we have in the Santa Monica up here. And we are out. So what happened? Let's watch and then talk about it. It's good, but I realized something while I was watching that back. The speaker on this camera, when you're watching something back, the sound coming out of this camera is better than the Sony cameras. I was able to hear what I was saying. I usually never hear what I'm saying on the Sony camera, so that's good. I'm glad I realized it. By the way, I like the design of this camera. Most cameras have that swollen battery look, which I don't like. This camera is pretty handsome and it's pretty ergonomic as well. I've been carrying this in my hand this entire time, and it just holds back to your hand, if you know what I mean. Some cameras, you just gotta squeeze it in your hand, which is, don't write that in the comments. But with this one, the grip is really good. It just sits in your hand. It is nice. I also like the way it looks. It looks mean. And the screen on top, I kind of keep forgetting that it is there. But the screen on top is very useful. But honestly, this entire shoot I did today, I didn't even remember it was there. But that's on me. So would I buy this camera and would I use this camera? Well, that's a very tricky question because I have all this history with Nikon, being a Nikon user, so I love this camera. Immediately I remembered how to use it. It was just an extension of me. It's pretty good, but when it comes to video, the lack of any logs and the 30-minute video limit for someone who speaks English as a second language and who sometimes takes forever to get his sentences out, I cannot really have another obstacle in the way. I cannot be looking out if this camera is still shooting or if it turned off quietly or if it's recording or if it's not recording. So I don't know. When it comes to photos, it's of course amazing, but I also don't know how they cannot fix all these problems. I feel like they should be able to put an indicator when we start recording, put an indicator when we stop recording, and maybe you can remove the 30-minute video recording limit. I don't know. Those are, for me, are the deal breakers. Of course, it's going to be up to you if you're just recording in smaller increments. Then, of course, 30 minutes is quite a long time. By the way, there's an app called SnapBridge where you can control the camera. That's actually what I'm using right now to see myself, so I can adjust the ND filter on top of this camera. And I thought this can be a nice dynamic range example because I'm in the shadow and it's really bright behind me. And we have an ND filter that is doing what an ND filter does. It's sunglasses for our cameras, and I can start and stop the recording from here. I can change the f-stop. I can change the shutter speed. I'm seeing the framing. It's a little delayed, but it's still fine. It establishes a Wi-Fi and Bluetooth or Bluetooth connection with the camera. It's pretty good. You can change a lot of stuff. You can stop it and start it. It's good. A couple of other things I like to mention. The microphone, the Sennheiser microphone, is just amazing. I'm really happy with how it captures the sound. I'm actually really surprised because it feels like I'm wearing a lavalier mic, but no, it's just that Sennheiser microphone and it is amazing. I love that microphone. The second thing is the screen doesn't get blocked out with polarized sunglasses no matter what angle you're looking at the screen, which is really good. I'm not sure if it's bright enough. It may not be bright enough for you on a sunny day like this. It wasn't bright enough in some situations for me, but it doesn't get blocked by polarized sunglasses at all. In the end, if you're in the Nikon ecosystem, you have to check this camera out. It packs everything I love about Nikon and then some, and I think you're gonna love it. But I also think it is lacking one hit feature that would make Z6 II stand out from the rest to bring people over from other brands. Before releasing this video, I used this camera as my own a lot, and I can say that I love the image quality, the colors, the ergonomics, and the battery life. And I hope the things I mentioned and the wobble around the edges caused by stabilization can be taken care of with an update. Because just like best friends, after all these years apart, the second we got back together, we picked it up where we left off. Well, thank you very much for watching this episode and I hope you enjoyed it, and thank you so much Nikon for sending this camera for me to test it out. Of course, they didn't have any say in this video. They didn't see this video before it came out. They're seeing it with you, and this camera is gonna go back, sadly, but I milked it. I have to tell you that I milked as much as I can. I had this camera for a real long time. Remember that collab I did with Gerald? Yeah, I had this camera ever since that, and I've been using it. It's a good camera. But what I'm curious about is what you thought. What did you think about this camera? Did you like the footage? Did you like how it turns out? Do you think the limitations and stuff like that are deal breakers, or is it just, stuff that you would never use? Do you have one of these? Let me know in the comment section below. And until I see you the next time, take really good care of yourselves. And hoşça kalın.